Today I'm going to talk about Aikido with Taijutsu form, empty-handed techniques. Even though this is the empty-handed technique, we should be very strongly thinking of Bukiwasa. This stance, Ken no Kamae, same stance, or here, Ken no Kamae. It shouldn't change. The position should be quite strong, correct footwork, good positioning of your hips, and everything begins from the hips. So we're not doing a technique that is beginning with the arms. We want to avoid that. But everything begins from the core center. So core center strong. So the arms are fairly relaxed. But do Kokyu feeling. Hips locking strong. It's fair to say that when one does Bukiwasa, they strengthen the hips, strong posture, feeling of the hips, and the center is much more intensely felt from within, as opposed to hands movement, which we want to avoid. The other thing about Aikido is I firmly believe we should be practicing as if we're surrounded, one against multiple attackers. So we shouldn't be just thinking of overcoming the partner who is gripping your arm here, and then we just solely focus on him. No. The focus is not on the partner, the focus is behind us. So it's what you don't see that you should be concerned. So here, up. Now you've got this vision. You have this vision, and then you can see what is going on around you. And I think that's Aikido. The techniques have been designed so you're not staying on the spot, but you go offline. For katate dori, ikkyo, ura. On the spot. Now, start dealing with potential attackers. That is extremely important, as opposed to dealing with him or her, and then we're focusing on one-on-one. The focus should be one against multiple attackers, as if we've been surrounded. This feeling should be strong, the same as Moritedori, Kokyu. Breathing exercise with our hips. Dealing with this side now. That's, to me, this aspect of dealing against multiple attackers should be prominent. It should be the core focus in your training. So, katate dori, irimi nage. This focus, one on multiple attackers, should be top priority. Top priority. If we practice like this, it makes our Aikido much stronger. But if we practice one-on-one, bending the back, looking down, it's limited to one-on-one, but you can't cope with one against multiple attackers. So Yokominuchi, same thing, is getting out of the way. If there's an attack at the back, I'm out already. and at. And that's the emphasis. I think it's fair to say, when you're practicing weapons, you get this feeling much more. You're becoming more sensitive to the environment you've been subjected to. So you could be striking to the back, forward, back and forward. You're kind of ready for front and back, sideways, turning, but keeping the center, a good posture. Good posture gives you power in your technique. If you haven't got a good posture, you lose that power. You're leaning forward. Power. Twisting the hips. Not the hand. It's hips turning. There's another element about the training is when you use a jaw and you do the turn, it's not the jaw doing this. It's actually the hips turning. The hips drive the movement. So when you're doing technique, Ikkyo ura. This hand stays in front of me. And it's the hips turning. So in other words, you're not doing this with your arms, but you keep your arms in front of you, you turn your hips. What you realize, the turning of your hips make the movement, do the drive to create the power and the controlling, and so you're not using your hands, you're simply turning your hips. Turning your hips and emphasize with the Kokyu. So it's like optical illusion. Beginners will see this. But an advanced judoka should look here. That is what makes Aikido so difficult to understand, because there are a lot of paradox. Taijutsu, you think more of Bukiwasa. When you do Bukiwasa, you think Taijutsu application, one paradox. The power is not here. When a group happens, you apply the power from here. So you expand this power, up, up, from the ki, from the hips here, up. This is very relaxed. Kokyu. This and this together, and you apply the power from under. So there's no sense of lifting, but under. Lifting, up. You don't have the shoulders going up. So the power is under. So to be strong, you have to be soft. Use the power from the hips. It's one aspect. Okay, the person dealing with you is not a problem. The problem is what you can't see. So you should feel uncomfortable that you don't know what's happening here. There's various options. If there's an attacker from the back, you could do Ito Hemi and switch to the back of your oke. So now you can see what's happening. If there's an attack to the side, you have the alternative. You don't really want to go in here because your back is facing the attacker. But now you're changing. You use uke as a shield. So you're adapting Aikido as you are subjected to, any given situations. And I think that's That's the key element. The other aspect of it is, if he is tensing, you don't want to tense. If he's tensing, you do the exact opposite. You relax. You drive him off. Send his balance down. Balance down. But the feeling is always one against many. I mean, that's what makes Aikido quite advanced and difficult to understand at the same time. There's also a whole lot of debates. Well, why you offer your hand here? Why would you expect someone to grab and grip? Now this, my view on this is, it's like you're going to the gym and you've got different weights, different sizes, so you're building your body strength. So there is a method of training that we do in Aikido. He grips strong, so I can't move. This is the start for Kihon. Obviously you've got the Kinoniga, moving, blending, you take his balance, but you have to understand the Kihon first and do the strong grip. So if he's gripping strong and you want to overcome with the strength, you have that wrestling, and that's no longer Aikido. So already you learn to relax. He grips and you try to cope and find a way that his balance is affected, and you perform Aikido from there. So various techniques you can do. Shihonage, it's the same thing. It's finding the movement of the hips, not the arms. Hips driving, and the feeling is the hips turning very strong. So you haven't got tension on your shoulders, arms. It should be fairly relaxed. It's the feeling of the Kokyu you should really foremost get a feel of. That is the reason why we do the weapons, is to get this feel. The Kokyu feeling. The Kokyu feeling. And the twisting of the hips that really make a big difference in Taijutsu training. When the weapon training is not exercise, I think Aikido is limited, because you tend to perform with the hands, and it's not your fault. If you don't know the weapons, you'll be thinking this is what it needs to be done. So in Aikido we do a lot of grip, stuck. We don't really want to be in that situation. If someone grips us, it's not going to happen. You get hit quite quickly, possibly. Chances are someone is going to strike in Atemi with a punch or front kick, side kick, all sort of things. But the element of Aikido is to build a strong base, strong foundation. You want to be strong, you begin with small weights, and then gradually go for the bigger weights, and you do different things, different exercise. And I think it's exactly the same with Aikido. So you have the Kihon, static, use the hips, power, right placement of the hips, with Atemi, and positioning, so important. And then you have the Owase, put together. The Owase is done with the blending, strike, all kind of techniques that may happen, and it's difficult to appreciate it because I'm actually doing a video completely alone. But this feeling is this Kokyu, whatever you do. Aikido techniques, very powerful. Some, obviously, the more you realize you're using the hips, the stronger the power becomes, and the more responsible you have to be as an individual towards others. And I think that's possibly the aspects why we become more spiritual in a sense, because only when we have a strong and powerful Aikido, we suddenly realize we have to be quite careful how we use it, and therefore we actually look after our partner, and there shouldn't be any sense of combat, scaring the partner, or being a bit brutal. Not for me. I find you should find a blending, a wase, and with all the natural principles, it should just be no resistance, and it's coming towards to grip. That's just one aspect of it. Or Kokyu. Strong hips, feeling. This, in my view, that's what makes Aikido very interesting, because there's so much to learn for one. There's so many basic techniques with Tajutsu, so many variants with Bukiwasa, Tachidori, Jowaza, Jodori, Kumijo, Kumitachi, Kentajo, Boken and Jo. It's actually quite elevated, very complex, and it takes a long time to get to understand deeper what really Aikido is. And when I first started learning Aikido, I actually thought Aikido was a self-defense martial art, but until I was shown actually it's not really a self-defense. Self-defense means to defend yourself, but Aikido is much more offensive than being on the defensive side, because when you position in yourself, you kind of lay a trap. You position yourself precisely in that manner is for katadori, grip to take place, or if you position yourself in that manner, could also be ryote katadori or ski, which is what you kind of guide your partner, and this is laying the trap. So Uke believes he can get you, and that's exactly what you want, and you're one step ahead, and you use that at your advantage to neutralize your partner. So for me, Aikido has that element of blending, but also to be controlling the situation, to be on top of it from start to finish, as opposed to being reactive and not expecting what to do. Aikido positioning begins with a Kamae. Strong Kamae means whatever may happen, you are ready. There shouldn't be any surprise. Here I know it's a good positioning, interesting, because my center line is not facing potential attacker, more with the shoulder forward. So for me, I feel sort of protected already, and I feel confident. And when you're ready, you feel very strong. It's to do with the beginning. You have a strong Hanmi, strong Kamae, you have a strong presence, and Aikido should be good. If you have a weak Hanmi, it doesn't give the same effect. So using the same principles and blending exercise, moving in together. I think the blending, obviously we can only do it when we train in partners, but when Uke attacks, we don't react and then respond. Uke attacks, we respond at the same time. But say with the attacks, I respond already. I attack offline and I'm already responding. Strike. I don't really think attack, block and attack. It's different thinking. Aikido does not have that element of block. Obviously, there, for your community, there is that element of a block, but the strike is imminent at the same time. So it's not block and strike. They've got to come together. And with the hips. So there's a lot to be said about Aikido, a lot to be understood, and it takes years of practice. The more I study, the more I realize it's all in the Kamae. The stance, and you twist, and you project yourself, being ready, with a strong Hanmi power from the hips. Previous Aikidos I have done is I used to wear the gi with the belt without the hakama, and that's alright. We can practice outside without a hakama. Benefits of wearing one is as soon as you put it on, you feel your hips are being tightened, and the movement of the hips is felt 10 times more than just putting the belt. So when you are doing a technique, this is hips, you can feel the hips. That's the beauty of wearing a hakama. You feel the movement of the hips far more. So I will be doing some videos very soon with taijutsu application wearing a hakama. So hopefully you still be able to see the footwork, which was one of my worry about wearing a hakama, is that it disguises the footwork, so you may not be able to see it. But hopefully this will not be an issue in any of my future videos. Anyway, I hope this video was informative and gave you some good information and maybe a few thoughts how you could practice if you haven't thought about what I said. Thank you for watching.